Have you ever heard a sound that chilled you to your very core? A sound that carried with it a promise of something ancient and terrible in the forgotten, fog-shrouded town of Ravensmoor. Such a sound existed, locked away in a crumbling stone chapel. It came from a single, rusted iron bell. But this was no ordinary bell. Centuries ago, a disgraced priest, accused of dark rituals, was executed on this very spot. With his final breath, he cursed the bell, weaving a legend that would haunt the town for generations. The curse was simple, yet absolute. Whoever hears the bell toll after midnight will meet a fate no one can escape. For years, the town held its breath. The bell remained silent, a dormant relic of a dark past. But silence, as they say, is often just a quiet before the storm. And that storm arrived on a tempestuous night in the year 1823. Rain lashed against the windows, and wind howled through the narrow, cobbled streets. Then, at 3 minutes past midnight, it happened. A single, resonant toll echoed from the chapel tower. It was a sound that seemed to cut through the noise of the storm, a deep, mournful clang that settled in the hearts of all who heard it. The next morning, as the sun struggled to pierce the gray clouds, the first victim was found. The town blacksmith, a man of immense strength, was discovered collapsed in his forge. His heart had simply stopped. There were no wounds, no signs of a struggle, not a single mark on his body. Just an expression of sheer, unadulterated terror frozen on his face. The town was shaken, but they dismissed it as a tragic coincidence. A heart attack. The stress of the storm. They were wrong. The following night, the bell tolled again. This time, its sound was clearer, more deliberate. By dawn, another soul was claimed. A farmer known for his grounded, no-nonsense nature was found floating inches above his bed, perfectly still, as if gravity itself had forgotten him. His wife's screams echoed through the morning mist. Panic began to fester in Ravensmoor. This was no coincidence. The curse was real. The bell was hunting them. Night after night, the bell rang. And each morning brought a new, unspeakable horror. A young seamstress, beloved by all, was discovered standing rigid in the middle of her shop. Her eyes were wide with a terror that seemed to look beyond this world, and her shadow on the wall behind her was twisted into a monstrous writhing shape. Moving independently of the still figure it was cast from, it was as if a very shadow had turned. Against her, the town drunkard, who had laughed off the legend just days before, was found encased in a block of solid ice in the middle of a sweltering summer alleyway, his face a permanent mask of horror. The jovial innkeeper, a man who knew everyone's secrets, simply vanished. His bed was still warm, the sheets rumpled as if he had just laid down, but he was gone. No signs of forced entry, no struggle, just an empty space where life used to be. The terror even reached the innocent. A small child was found levitating in her family's attic, her eyes closed, humming a haunting lullaby in a language no one in the town had ever heard. A melody that seemed to come from the grave itself. The survivors were gripped by a primal fear. They had to stop the bell. In a desperate act of defiance, a group of townsfolk stormed the chapel, tore the cursed bell from its moorings, and dragged it deep into the murky, treacherous marshes outside of town. With a great heave, they sank it beneath the dark, still water, praying their nightmare was finally over. But that night, as a false sense of hope settled over the few remaining houses, a new sound emerged. It was muffled, distorted by the mud and water, but it was unmistakable. The bell was tolling again, its ghostly chime echoing from beneath the very earth they stood on. The deaths continued, each more bizarre and impossible than the last. The curse couldn't be drowned. It couldn't be. Escaped, realizing their doom was sealed, the people of Ravensmoor simply gave up. The town emptied, not by people fleeing, but by people being taken. It became a ghost town in the truest sense. Doors were left unlocked, half-eaten meals grew cold on tables, and candles burned themselves down to nothing on the cold stone wall of the abandoned chapel. A final, chilling message was found. Freshly carved by an unseen hand, the bell chooses the guilty, and the curious who think they can hide. Even today, centuries later, the area around Ravensmoor is avoided. Locals from neighboring villages whisper that on stormy nights, if you stand near the marshes and listen very, very closely, you can still hear the faint, muffled toll of a bell ringing from deep within the earth. And when you do, they say, you can feel the cold shadows of the long dead stretching out behind you, curious about who has come to join them. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, be sure to subscribe, and ring that notification bell carefully.